Our lesson today involves identifying angles when a transversal intersects parallel lines. So there's some terminology we have to become familiar with. The first is parallel lines. We can see right here that line A and line B are parallel lines. The red line that goes through here is called a transversal. And the definition of a transversal is just a line that cuts through two parallel lines. And the next term we're going to be using a lot today is corresponding. You remember when we were doing corresponding shapes from our proportion unit, where if we had side X and side Y, they were proportional because all the sides of the one shape were similar to the sides of the other shape. And the same thing goes for the angles. So angle 2 corresponds to angle 7, and because they are similar and correspond, they are also congruent. What we're going to look at now is what happens in the relationship between different angles when a transversal does cut the parallel lines. So you see I've labeled angle 1 and angle 2. And from what we learned the previous day, we can see that angle 1 and angle 2 are on the same side of one of the lines. So those two angles add up to 180. So if angle 2 were, say, 80 degrees and angle 1 was 100 degrees, that would add up to 180 and they would be supplemental. Now, if we know that angle 1 and 2 equal 180 degrees, we can also figure out that angle 2 plus angle 3 would equal 180 degrees. And that's going to leave us in a pretty weird situation, and it's going to reveal that angle 1 and angle 3 are corresponding and are similar. So angle 1 equals angle 3. The measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 3. Those are called vertical angles. So because of that rule, angle 2 and angle 4 are also vertical angles, and they are also equal in measure. Now we need to take a look at the angles in the bottom part of the diagram. So let's take a look at this. Angle 2 is going to form the same angle as angle 6 because the transversal cuts through the parallel lines at the same angle. So angle 2 is the same as angle 6, and angle 6 is the same as angle 8. So that means that angle 2, 4, 6, and 8 all have the same value. We can say the same thing now, for we know that angle 3 and angle 7 are going to be corresponding and equivalent, and because of vertical angles, 3 and 1 are the same and 7 and 5 are the same. So these four angles, 2, 4, 6, 8, are going to be the same, and 1, 3, 5, and 7 are all going to be the same. So if we break this down even further, we can say that corresponding angles, which are angles that correspond to angles of the same location on the other the other parallel line, will be the same. So as 2 is to 6, 1 is to 5, 7 is to 3, and 4 is to 8. So those are called corresponding angles. There are two other sets of angles we need to discuss. The first is alternate interior. Now an alternate interior angle would refer to angle 6 and angle 4 because they're both inside the two parallel lines and on alternate side. But angle 4 and angle 6 are equivalent angles. We can say the same thing about angle 2 and angle 8. Now those are called alternate exterior angles because they're alternating and they are on the outside, the exterior of the parallel lines. So 1 and 7 are also alternate exterior, and 3 and 5 are alternate interior angles. So this is going to be pretty cool here. What we can do is, if we know one angle, we can figure out the rest of the angles. So let's take a look. 70, if this angle is 70, we know by supplemental angles that this is 110. We can also fill in that this is 110, and vertical angles would mean that this angle is 70. Now we discussed corresponding angles. So by a corresponding angle, this would be 70. And again, we can start filling in. Supplementary over here, 110. Vertical angles right here is 70. And again, supplemental angles is 110. So just by knowing one of these angles, by all the terms you learned today, you can figure out all of the other angles. And the final item in the video is that if you know that this angle here is 80 degrees, and we know there are corresponding angles, and this equals 2x plus 20, we know that we can set these equal to each other, and that 80 equals 2x plus 20. That's a one-step, two-step equation right there. We can just subtract 20 from both sides and get 60, and 2x equals 60. So x is going to equal 30. So we'll be doing some problems like this today, and get ready for Cornell Notes.